case you were wondering. So yeah, I've got this ear bandaged up. I had a little bit of a cancer spot taken out of it about 10 days ago, and so it's got to stay sealed until it heals, which will be about 6 weeks. So anyway, I thought I'd get that out of the way. Kids started rumors at the ranch that I got bit by a horse. Well, actually, I started that rumor. And then, I kind of forget it's there, and people just come up and say, hey, by the way, what's going on with your ear? So anyway, welcome. So we have about 20 people signed up. And
hi, this is Terry. This is Terry Lund.
Hey, Terry.
Hi, Patrick.
How are you? So thanks let me check you in. And so what happens is if you are on a computer, then we get to see you, and it really is beautiful. If you're on a telephone, we don't know you're out there. So I'm going to do, I'm just going to ask anybody that's not on a computer to identify themselves so that I can know kind of who my audience is. And then we'll kind of get started. And I've got the other thing we have.
Patrick, does everybody get to see, or is it just you that gets to see us? I just worked out and I look terrible.
Well, the truth is I don't get to see any of you, and that's really not fair to me because I think it would be funny. But you do get to see me. So nobody can see each other. There are platforms that have that, but I think now about 4 years ago we asked people what what they'd prefer. And I am by nature Italian, so I do a lot of my communication in nonverbal ways. And so I think people find it helpful to see me if you're on a computer. But no, I cannot see you. And what we do ask you to do is mute your mic if there's background noise. If you're in a very quiet area, even if you're on a phone, and I mean, we've had people call in from airports and what have you. But if you're in a real quiet area, then you don't need to mute your mic because we're not going to pick up any background noise. But sometimes people are in their backyard and you can hear the wind and it sort of distorts what everybody else is saying. So we ask you to, if you think there's, and it looks like, let me just keep taking roll. It'll just take me a few more minutes.
Okay, I'm on my phone, Patrick, but I'm going to try to get on the computer since nobody can see me.
Okay, nobody can see you, so I do like those black pants. I mean, I know you just worked out. I'm kidding. I can't see you. So let me see. Where are the bets here? Why can't I see them?
Okay. Patrick, this is Lev. I'm on the phone, and I will be on the phone.
Perfect. So we got. I'll let.
I'm good at that.
And I'm also wearing black workout pants.
Oh, I was gonna. So anyway, so we've got Lev on the phone. We have okay.
We have the Morrison.
And we have the bet.
Hi, Patrick. This is Heather. Oh, this is Heather Larson. I'm on the phone, actually also wearing black yoga pants, and I'm going to stay on the phone because I need to move around.
Okay, so we got Heather. It seems like black yoga pants are in right now. Now I feel inadequate. I've got Levi's on. And I do not do yoga. I should, but I don't. Okay, anybody else? Okay, so cool.
For the record, I'm not wearing yoga pants.
And who is this?
That's Lev.
Lev, okay. So,
I just want to state that you do not want to see me in yoga pants.
Okay. So let's get started, and then anybody else on the phone that is not on a computer that we wouldn't see your name. So anybody else on a phone?
Yeah. Well, I'm staying on the phone until I can maybe get on the computer, but for now I'm on the phone. This is Terry Lund. So.
Okay, perfect. And then Stephen.
Dina Buslovich is. Oh.
Okay, go ahead. All right.
Dina Buslovich.
Okay, so this is how these support groups work, and I think some people have found we've had people that have gone the entire year and attended every one we've put together. And we've had people that have attended one or two and they found them helpful, and then, you know, their schedules got busy or they had a conflict and they didn't attend. So it's really whatever you want. They are intended to be very much, you know, several years ago, I think still today, it's one of my #1 priorities in what we do at our continuum of care is how young people and adolescents do when they leave us. We recognize that we are asking young people that we're in the field of doing something that is extremely difficult, and I wouldn't do anything else, and that's asking a young person at 17 or 16 or 18 or 20, whatever the age range is, to consider one day at a time living life on life's terms without the use of drugs or alcohol. I think it's really important that you hear what I say, and that is one day at a time. So never is your son going to hear from me, or I hope anybody else on my staff, I've not heard this told to me, that you have to make a commitment to not use drugs and alcohol for the rest of your life. So we really are kind of breaking it down to one step at a time. So what we know for sure is that at 16 or 17, in the culture, more so today that, you know, that we live in, that the messages from the larger culture are that you need something externally to feel better internally. So I think most people would agree on this call that you can't watch a television show without getting a commercial about some sort of pharmacological solution to what ails you. And whether it's depression, whether it's bipolar, whether it's weight loss, it doesn't matter what it is. We now have, as most of you know, in the United States, most states have legalized the consumption of marijuana. My point on all this, and now Canada's legalized marijuana, that the kids that we work with and the young adults are hearing from us, and we believe it because most of them are with us because their life has been critically compromised by the use of drugs or alcohol. And we want them to give sobriety a chance one day at a time and see if their life improves. We believe that it will, and I think you as parents believe that it will. We know that they're going to go off, whether it's to transitional living or it's back home or it's to college, and the larger messaging is going to be get high, you know, take something outside of yourself to make you feel better. Why I start with that is because I know that the biggest predictor of success after the program ends is wherever your children go is the parent engagement, is how involved you are in the process. And so as part of our commitment to that, we do these parent support groups, and we believe, and the data suggests, that the more connected we are, that the more likely we are to rely on that support to get through the difficult times. There's going to be difficult times in the program for sure. We're set up for that. The difficult times I'm talking about happen 2 years from now, or 3 years from now, or a year from now after your son's away at college and he relapses, or he makes a decision to go back to using and feels like he can handle it differently. So everything we can do to support you as a parent and engage you with us means that when the work gets tough, and it will, and your son will start to question a lot of what he's gone through, as the larger society says, don't believe what they told you. Drugs and sex and rock and roll are really what you need. Spiritual principles and honesty and integrity and family communication, who needs that? So as those messages become more polarizing, if you will, then you are the difference maker. And so our family recovery is probably the most important part of what we do, honestly. How you engage in this process, how we can connect with you, how you build the support system around you, how you activate Families Anonymous or Al-Anon. So this is just another example of something that we continue to create to keep you engaged. We met yesterday as an executive team with all the department heads. And the primary, it was a follow-up to our yearly retreat, which is like a 3-day strategic planning event. And the theme for the last 2.5 years is, how do we support families and kids when they leave the program? How do we increase the likelihood that they will be sober a year out? Why a year? And you'll hear lots of information about that. And because we feel like, with what we know about the way that the brain is now developing, the advances in neurological science, is that the brain's executive functioning grows and continues to develop and is programmed up until age 25, some studies 23. I'll just go with 21, doesn't matter. But we know that the more we can kind of pump in principles of honesty and integrity and keep a brain chemical free for the most part, get rid of all the crap, and build that sort of moral character, that even if young people at 19 or 20 go back out, there's a likelihood that they're going to be okay, or that they're going to come back in and they're going to do a self-correction. So if all that makes sense. That was a long way of introducing why I think the family engagement is so important. So this is another piece of that. These support groups are, Stephanie, my assistant, will send out a brief survey or just an outreach and say, hey, is there anything you need from us? And in that, if there's something that was shared on here that you don't want us to post, just keep this one off the parent portal. If we don't hear from you, we're going to post it on our parent portal. Sometimes, as I've said in the past, one parent's home, the other parent may not, is taking the other sibling to soccer or still at work. So they want to say, hey, honey, I want you to hear what we talked about. And so he can jump on our parent portal in a couple days and kind of hear what was discussed. It's not for public consumption. It's just within the continuum of our parents. So just know that this will be posted unless you ask us not to. And if you ask us not to, don't feel guilty about that. Just go for it. The question, and what I'd like to kind of focus on, some of you for sure are brand new to the program, and some of you have been with us for quite a while. And so, just the last qualifier is we try to avoid kind of specific questions like, Patrick, do you know if my son will get his level 2 by next Friday? So the things that we concentrate is kind of on the family support and family recovery and sort of general principles. You might say, Patrick, what happens if my son is delayed for 2 months in getting his level? How does he emotionally kind of handle that? I just made that up, but that would have kind of general application, because there's definitely somebody on this call that has the same issue. So we ask kind of general. Now, having said that, I'm not rigid in anything I do. If you have really a burning question that you want to take this time because you're with me to ask, and just ask it. I'm not going to say, hey, you can't ask that. It's not kind of part of the overarching idea. So with that in mind, I have a question, and I'm going to call on each of you to kind of contemplate this question. The holidays for people in recovery or people not in recovery that are trying to get in recovery, people that have mental health and substance abuse, and the families that love them often are it can be a difficult time. It can be a time where we, have some sadness. It's a time that we reflect. It's for I think a lot of families, it's a time of celebration, but for those that grew up in families, and I am one of those that had a lot of substance abuse in the family, the holidays were not a time of celebration, at least for me in that family. They were a time of anxiety. And so I want to just kind of ask the question, what are the challenges of this holiday season? You all have children in a program. Some of you might have those children at home over the holidays, and some of you may not. So what are the challenges of this holiday season, and what are the gifts? So that would be my question as a way to start the discussion in this parent support group. And I'll just kind of go on the list that I have checked, and I'm just going to double check with Stephanie to make sure I've got everybody checked that's here. Her eyesight's better than mine. So it looks like, is Dina here?
Yep, Dina's here.
Okay, so Dina, I'd like to, I guess I'd like to start with you if I could. You're brand new. Welcome to this format. I hope you find it helpful. And what I ask you to do, because you are brand new, is just introduce yourself, how long your son's been in the program, how old he is, and then just kind of talk in general terms about what this holiday season is going to be, what are the challenges and what are the gifts. So Dina, keep in mind that if your microphone may be muted.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
No, I unmuted it. Can you
Dina, it sounds
hear
like
me?
it sounds a little bit like you're underwater. We may have a bad connection. Yeah.
So my name is Dina. My son Elon is.
Yeah, Dina, it's still not working, so I'm gonna maybe have you hang up and call back in and see if it improves, and I'll go to somebody else, and maybe just listening will help, because it sounds like when we hear you, it's very garbled and we can't really understand what you're saying.
Okay, I will disconnect.
Now, that's weird because now it was perfect. So let's try this one more time. Okay, I'm sorry, but yeah, so Dina, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can, and it sounds pretty clear to me. If everybody else can hear, that would be great, but I know I can.
Just go. Just. So, I'm currently in the middle of the middle of Minnesota, in the middle of nowhere, working on a job. So, my name is Dina. My son is Elon. He is 17. He has been there for 2.5 weeks.
Okay.
For us, we don't. For concerning the holidays, Thanksgiving holiday is a little difficult because it's our daughter's birthday. our oldest daughter is coming home from college. And my husband emigrated to this country on Thanksgiving. They literally arrived to this country on Thanksgiving. And so for them, Thanksgiving's a pretty big deal. So for Elon not to be there is, you know, it's just not going to feel right. Thankfully, my parents who live in Scottsdale will be able to come down and be with him. And I think that will help. And then we don't celebrate Christmas, we do Hanukkah, and Hanukkah's not a major holiday for us. So it's a little bit different in the fact that the holidays are a little bit different. And we'll be down there with him. So for me, the holidays isn't as much of a problem as I think most. And I think I really don't know how he's going to take it. I don't know. So we'll be down there before Thanksgiving, so I guess we'll have a better idea then. So
if I heard that correctly, Thanksgiving as a general principle is really a celebratory time for you and your family because your husband literally immigrated to the United States on Thanksgiving Day. And,
right.
And that this Thanksgiving, if I heard you correctly, you're going to be at the Academy. If I heard that right, you're going to be in Scottsdale and come down.
No.
Did I hear that right?
Nope. No. So my parents, so Lev's parents and Lev came, but my parents live in Scottsdale and my parents are going to come down and be with Elon on Thanksgiving. But we will be in Minnesota celebrating without him.
Okay. So he'll be in Thanksgiving Day without family.
He'll be with my parents.
Okay. They're going to come down from Scottsdale and celebrate with him.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. And again, I would ask, and maybe you said it, maybe I didn't hear it, and I apologize because I've got one ear taped up and the other ear, doesn't work that great either. But so the question is kind of the challenge. Let's just go with Thanksgiving. Emotionally, what's the challenge for you? I think I heard you say, we won't be together as a family. And that's a challenge, but I just want to clarify that. And then what is the gift of that holiday? So what is the challenge for you emotionally, physically, spiritually, and what is the gift?
So the problem that I have been finding with most things is when you're happy and there's something positive going on, there's always this tinge inside of me because Elon's missing. It's not complete. It's, this is great. Oh, but Elon can't join us. So it can't be completely joyful. So that's always hard. The thing that is positive is it's my daughter's 15th birthday. So, we will focus on her that day and celebrate her birthday. So.
Okay. So thank you. And I wonder if, Carolyn, if you want to just kind of speak to that. I think, is Lisa here? Mm-hmm. And Lisa.
I'm here.
Yeah. So, Carolyn, I think you're there. I wonder, I can just barely appreciate what you're saying, but I definitely can appreciate it. Like nothing's really complete because there's this kind of missing link to our family. And I can, say that I definitely think that that's an accurate feeling, and obviously it's your feeling, but I wonder if Carolyn or Lisa want to speak to that from their experience.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Carolyn there? Oh, okay.
So in my experience, and I know because Thanksgiving was a very difficult holiday for us when my son was there, and apart from them being away from the family, you know, I can totally relate to, you know, your thought, Dina, that, you know, even when things are going well, there's a piece missing, and we always wish that we had that. But what I've come to realize, just in the course of this journey that we're all on, is that we have given our sons the greatest gift they can have, and that's the gift of treatment and getting well. And that there are so many more holidays that he will be a part of because he's had this experience. And, you know, my son's 12 years out now, and it's amazing to see, you know, the change in him and, you know, just how he's grown over the years. And so those couple of years of him not being there for a holiday or for a special occasion was worth it, and that you will have many more to come, you know, if not these particular ones. So, I mean, I appreciate your thought on that, and that it is a gift to be able to celebrate your daughter's 15th birthday and have your other daughter come home from college and be together and have grandparents that can come to be with them on Thanksgiving. So I appreciated that thought a lot.
Anybody else want to share that was here for one of the holidays that had a similar, or just have a similar feeling like something's always not complete? Any other parent that wants to share, and you just unmute yourself and introduce yourself and say, this is a comment I'd like to share. So let me take this opportunity to go.
Patrick?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, this is Kathy.
Hey, Kathy.
Jack Carter's mom. I just wanted to say that one of our best holidays that we had was sort of in the beginning. Jack was unable to come home, and so we went there. We are a family of 3, and it was one of our best Christmases ever, even though it was small. We didn't, you know, haul a lot of gifts or anything like that out there, but we found a bed and breakfast there, and you know, made the most of us not being at our house, and like, you know, had a great time in a little bed and breakfast in the desert. You know, we didn't even go to Tucson, so it's kind of like you have to kind of get in the mindset where, okay, it's different, it's not the tradition, but you know, it's tradition will still, the tradition will still continue. As Lisa said, you know, there'll be lots of traditional holidays after the ranch, but while you're there, you know, make the most of it. In this case, you know, the grandparents from Scottsdale will be there, and I will venture that they probably are used to the traditional Thanksgiving. And so this time it'll be a little different for them. They'll be with their grandson, and I don't know if they'll stay at the ranch for Thanksgiving, but we did. And the ranch throws a great Thanksgiving. It's memorable. And the folks in Minnesota can, you know, maybe you all can Skype together, you know, since you're not together, but it is an important holiday. And, you know, just sing louder and keep a chair open for, you know, when you're singing happy birthday to the sister. So you have to be able to be a little bit flexible in your mindset, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't have to be memorable, because it can still be very special and you know, where you walk away years later. It's been 4 years now for Jack, and you know, we sometimes still talk about that, you know, fabulous little time that we had in the desert.
And I share this as, thank you for that, and I share this as kind of a general idea, because and I think, Dina, that you brought up an issue that I think that every parent on this support group has dealt with, if not yesterday, sometime in this process. So I appreciate you bringing it up, because what you're talking about in a general sense, is grieving the loss of what was, sort of. And I know that Lev is on here, and I know that, he talked about sort of that idea of high school prom and, some of that sort of grieving that takes place of, I don't know, it's not what I thought would happen for my son over Thanksgiving or at 16 or 17 in high school. And so I think that, I think there is a grieving process. I absolutely believe that that's true. And I often, over the years, have been told that that does give way to a new life or a rebirth or new traditions. And I can tell you that we have families that are 16 years, that are 14 years out, that created new traditions over the holidays that they've kept to this day. I can share in my private practice where, people would get into recovery and that create a holiday around sobriety and recovery and ask all the extended family not to participate in spirits or mind-altering substances of any sort. And they created this kind of new tradition around the holiday, sometimes even starting earlier. And so there can be, and just like Kathy kind of discussed, there can be the recognition that, yeah, this is different. But different doesn't have to be good or bad. In fact, sometimes different can be better. I can tell you that for the holidays, and I can't speak to this for Elon or for Jack or for Matt or any of your sons. I can't speak directly to this, but I can take a lifetime of experience working primarily with young people, and I can tell you that with some degree of certainty that for the holidays, what it means for most young people is it really is a time to accelerate getting high, whether that's alcohol, whether that's pot, or whether that's Coke, or whether it's acid. There is a celebratory quality to the holiday that invites the addictive thinking that says, I need to accentuate this experience with using. Now, as a parent, you may or may not know that I share this story, and it's a true story with some things kind of mixed up. But the basic idea I think you'll appreciate, and that is, this family was a back east family, and they had a tradition of going to their parents' house, and the parents were, I'd say, probably in their 70s, and it was a tradition that they had, at least in his case, for 17 years, and they were grieving the loss of this tradition. And this was back at a time where I was still doing therapy at the ranch with some kids, and I would interject myself, and so we were kind of unpacking all that, and they're like, oh, and I totally appreciate this, son. I just can't believe you're going to miss Granny, and I forget the Grammy, I think was her name, and whatever, sort of name they had for them that was endearing, and we're going to miss the celebration. And, and he was really advanced. He was with us at that point about 10 months. And he's like, Mom and Dad, let me break something down for you if you are open to this. And they're like, what? And they're like, that's your memory of it? The last 3 years, I was in the bathroom doing dope. That's what that represents for me. Now, I know you're grieving the loss of that tradition, but I'm here to tell you that I was sick. And what that time meant for me was that I would get super anxious and I'd want to just be high as high could be. And they were really kind of surprised because in their mind, they thought this was kind of the one day of the year that he would refrain. And so I can tell you that that was many, many years ago. He's sober today, he's married, and celebrates, those holidays in a very different way. And so I think we, we can acknowledge that things are going to be different, and we are going to miss that difference. And then we can kind of do a little bit of a reality check. And for some of us, not all of us, we can look back on those times where it's in addiction treatment, they call it euphoric recall. So, somebody that had a heroin overdose, and if you follow the news and most people that die of a heroin overdose, it's their 5th or 6th overdose. The average, I think, is 3.5 overdoses prior to that where they almost died. And so you ask the question, like, wouldn't one near-death experience be enough? But the idea of euphoric recall is it's a neurological kind of sequencing in the brain where we kind of forget how horrible it was, and we go fast forward to the things that we remember that were pleasant. And honestly, it's really the theory of childbirth. And if you talk to evolutionists, they would say that that's why that is. That's why the brain was hardwired that way. So because obviously childbirth is a very painful experience, and I can't speak to that directly, obviously, but I think most people wouldn't have a second child if they really remembered the pain of it. So yeah, that's just a general idea, Dina. I invite you to embrace those feelings, to talk about them as you have, to attach with Lisa or Kathy or whoever your parent mentor is, your family's anonymous group or your Al-Anon group, and just kind of talk it through. And then also just to also try and maybe just create new tradition again, and celebrate the fact that there's one thing I think you can be about 99% sure of, and that is that Elon is going to be sober on this Thanksgiving.
Patrick?
Yes.
This is Terry Lund. Can I just share something that's...
Please.
So my son is 18, and he's been in the program since May 30th. And he was 17 at the time of entry. But so just to talk about what Dina is, grieving the loss of certain things. My son turned 18 in a wilderness IST with 2 people he didn't know. And I remember that day, my son turning 18, which is kind of a significant, for, you become a man legally, you can vote and go off to war. And here he was in an, I don't know if you know what IST means. It is intensive, what is it, Patrick? Intensive.
It's an intensive supervision track.
Right. So they had, he was talking about, since he was approaching 18, leaving the ranch and not continuing the program, and he was struggling. So that's what he did. So on his 18th birthday, it was very, very difficult. And I remember I read a couple of things on that day that really helped me, and some other experiences. And, just talking about, like, okay, this is my new normal. And I'm going to have to embrace what this is, and look at the gifts here. And it is hard that as the holidays are approaching. In my parent crisis group that I go to each week, something else, that a soundbite, if you will, that really helped me is that, everything is changing every day. And he said, the grains of sand, at the beach, they change every day. They turn over, and just trying to embrace the changes. And like we're talking about new traditions. We're also approaching Thanksgiving for our family, and looking at the gifts and the challenges. So that is something that helped me. And another soundbite, that now is not forever. So I think somebody else said, I love that. Now is not forever. Somebody else said that, this holiday may be different, but there are going to be many more. I think, Lisa, you said many more, hopefully, good holidays where he is clean and sober, your son, which is helpful. But those were helpful to me, you know.
Yeah, and it's a weird kind of, I don't know. I mean, and again, each of your experiences were different. So maybe, you know, Elon showed up on that holiday, or Jonathan, or but I can tell you that my experience is that they were up to something, and I just know that because again, most of my early career was behind closed doors, being an individual therapist for adolescents, and you know, trying to sort of dissuade them for their normal behavior around, you know, whether it was Hanukkah or whether it was Christmas or whether it was Thanksgiving, and them talking about even, you know, to be honest with you, when it gets cold, when it gets colder, some of you may already know this, but the season for harvesting marijuana, there's a better quality of marijuana. So some of you have heard it referred to as kind bud or Christmas bud or whatever, but there is some truth to it that this time of year becomes a time where, especially kids that are into marijuana, which is, you know, most of the kids we work with, the holidays really represent some of the best bud out there. And so we're thinking it represents, you know, you're going to get to see Uncle Tony, you haven't seen him for a while, and Grandma and Grandpa, and they love you so much, and that's not where their head's at. So, you know, I think it does offer some new opportunities. So I'd like to keep going, and Chuck, I see that you're here on this, if I'm reading this right. So these checks represent. So Chuck, welcome again. And I guess the question, you know, again, is just what are the challenges and what are the gifts of this holiday season?
Yeah, hi, Patrick. Sharon and I are both here.
Perfect.
And it's, I don't know, kind of funny because we're going back and forth as far as setting up a visit over Thanksgiving to spend with Eric. And, you know, just in some of the conversation here in this meeting has gotten both Sharon and I thinking. And to be perfectly honest, we're kind of backing off from that now. And we're kind of considering not coming out for a Thanksgiving visit. And the reasons for that are kind of simple, but honestly, so just to kind of preface, we live, we're very fortunate. I have a very large family, and we all live in the very near area here. So typically holidays for us have been very large gatherings. I've got 3 sisters, they've got their families, we all get together. We do things like RV trips together in the summer. So pretty family oriented. Getting our son Eric to do some of that has been like, you know, trying to lead a horse to water and making him drink. It's just been really not experiences that we really look back on fondly. And if we come out, I think our expectations would be just like what you're saying. There are these values to us that Thanksgiving represent, which are completely foreign to Eric. And I think it'd just kind of be setting us up for having some conflict because of that. So in lieu of that, I think what we're going to do is elect not to come out for Thanksgiving, allow him to experience the Thanksgiving there at the ranch. Sounds like it's wonderful. And we will experience Thanksgiving here with the folks that like celebrating Thanksgiving. And instead, just maybe come out for an alternate family weekend visit with him, where we can do stuff that's not associated with the holidays at all. And kind of might be the best for all to kind of go down that road instead.
Okay. Why don't you share a little bit about, well, maybe I'll let Sharon do this and speak to the challenges and the gifts. It seems like I hear that, Chuck, and I want to speak to that in a minute. It sounds like the challenge, which I really appreciate that you just kind of did a little bit of a reality check. This is an important holiday for us as a family. And, in the past, Eric couldn't really, excuse my language, kind of give a crap about it. And now we're thinking about uprooting a tradition that he's really never spent a lot of time taking care of. That's the challenge. The gift of it is, hey, I'm going to let go of that. I'm not going to feel guilty about that. And I'm going to go ahead and have this celebration with people that find the holiday and the community and the connection important. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, that's very much on the mark.
Okay. Sharon, how about you? Why don't you just introduce, how long Eric's been in the program, where you guys are from again, and kind of the challenges and the gift of this holiday from your perspective.
Okay, I'm Sharon. You just heard from my husband, Chuck, and our son, Eric, arrived at In Balance February 14th. So I guess he's been there about 8 months. Prior to that, he did a wilderness program. And then the year prior to that, he did a wilderness program that we kind of hung our hat on, and only to realize that a wilderness program without some kind of follow-up like In Balance is much less likely to succeed. So he's been at the wilderness program for quite a few weeks, followed by 8 months In Balance. Regarding the holidays, I'm thinking what you said. You really hit the nail on the head, Patrick, interpreting what Chuck said, and that's what I'm feeling too. Like Chuck said, we have a huge family that wants us to share with them, that gives to us and we give to them. So that's a pleasant way to share the big Thanksgiving meal. To visit Eric, it's about a 1,000-mile trip and a lot of money, a lot of time. And going there at Thanksgiving is a very busy time. So we just finished our call with Eric and his therapist just prior to this. So that's kind of puts us in a unique perspective emotionally, for thinking about what we're doing. But where Eric told us he's been giving so much and we're not giving much to him. And he is obviously giving a whole bunch with step work and school work and everything he's doing to apply for his level 3 promotion next week. So that lack of balance with his perception of what we're giving and his sharing of what he's giving is kind of making us come to this decision of stepping back from the holiday and sharing it with the people that we know will enjoy it with, and sharing a shorter weekend with Eric, maybe the weekend after the holiday or something like that.
Okay. And I think that just for people to be aware, we ask, there'll be a lot of kids actually that don't have families on the holidays. We as parents kind of create a vision of that, and that vision may be, kids are sitting in a corner, really sad. It's not the vision at all. They're with a lot of their peers that they've grown close to. They help out with the other families. There's some opportunities to do some service work. Truthfully, in 14 years, and I usually am off that day and then I'm there the following Monday, and, have open office hours. I can just tell you that, like, literally, I've never had a kid come in and, sort of melt down and say, I'm just so despondent, because they know, because let's talk about this just for a second, is we're breaking the hardest thing for us as parents to do for young people, especially young people that are compromised, is to break the sense of entitlement. I can be horrible leading up to, and I'm just speaking as a general idea, leading up to Thanksgiving, you as my parents could be in the kitchen all day, you know, baking some or cooking some of my favorite food. And then I come in and sit down at the dinner table high as a kite and eat. And I'm entitled to that, right? You know, you're my parents. Like, you owe that to me. Well, not really. Not at all, actually. And so there's this new kind of narrative that we're trying to develop in young people. This is under normal circumstances, that you're not really entitled to anything, that everything is based on a sort of connectivity and a reciprocal relationship. And sometimes as parents, you know, we just had the opportunity to we have 2 new students that started today, and I think one may be on this call, but I had the opportunity to look over the letter of accountability, and it's been pretty rough, man. The last 3 or 4 years it's been pretty awful. And I'm sure many of you can relate to that. Some of you maybe caught it early and it hasn't been that horrible, but it's, you know, and so we can kind of go to a place of guilt, you know, like, man, we're not going to be there. And we can do things driven by that guilt that can do more harm to other people in our life. An instance might be foregoing my daughter's 15th birthday so that, you know, I'm in this other place. But I really do believe, and I think all of you agree, that it's not about punishment. It's about the recognition that your sons made a series of choices that were complicated by a lot of different stuff, but ultimately they made the choices that led them to a place where you love them enough to put them in good hands so that they can learn to make different choices. And there's nothing about that you should feel guilty about. We can, you know, in Tucson, they, you know, celebrate some of the mental health agencies, all the kids that have, and young adults that have died of drug overdoses. And that's a grief that is profound for sure. And because of your love and courage, you know, we don't have to worry about that this Thanksgiving. I can't say we don't have to worry about it for the rest of his life, but this Thanksgiving, we don't have to worry about it. We will have in our community, we will have upwards of about 300 people that die on that day of drug overdose. And I will tell you that, you know, I don't know about you, maybe it doesn't sound like a lot, but to me, one person is a lot because of the preventable nature of drug addiction. So anyway, I didn't mean to get off on that, but thank you both for sharing that. And then I see that Dave is here, and I'd like to give him a chance to check in. Or did any other parent want to comment? I mean, I'll just always, you know, sometimes I forget to do that, but please, this is your group. This is about dialogue. So anybody else that wants to comment to what Chuck or Sharon have to say, please feel free to.
Oh, Patrick, this is Martin. I just want to mention I joined the call a little while ago.
Okay. Welcome, Martin.
Yeah, hi. How's it going? Good.
Hi, Patrick. This is Elaine. I joined the call about 10 minutes in as well.
This is Jesse.
Okay, let me just mark you here. And I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first name.
Jesse.
And then what was the other one? Who was the female?
It's Elaine, Sean G's mom.
Okay, Sean. Oh, okay.
Jesse Kogan.
Got it. Okay, perfect. So now I will yeah, I was going to give, so let me just go down to Dave. And Dave, I see you're on the call. Do you want to kind of check in how long your son's been in the program, what challenges or gifts? That's the question, guys. What's the challenges of this holiday and what are the gifts of this holiday? So Dave, if you're out there, make sure you unmute your mic. Oh, I'm not hearing him there. So Martin, I'll jump back up to you. So with that question in mind, thanks for joining us. How long's your son been in the program? What are the challenges of this holiday and what are the gifts?
Okay, my son's Gavin. He's been in the program since May. The challenges for me are like coordinating things. Between his brother, who's at a soccer academy and has a tournament in San Diego, and Gavin, I think, is going to be able to have some kind of Thanksgiving visit, at least in Tucson. And so it's just about like kind of trying to coordinate that along. Yeah. So that's the challenge. The gift is that, you know, I'll get to see Gavin one way or another, and our relationship has been healing a lot. So that'll be good. I'm looking forward to it.
Let me ask you, sort of knowing a little bit of the answer, I believe, but not for sure. When you reflect on last year at this time, what was that holiday going to look like?
Last Thanksgiving, I can't even remember. I remember last Christmas, Gavin's mom was at a detox on Christmas Day, so that I remember.
Okay.
But I don't even remember Thanksgiving, to be honest with you.
Can you share the bottom if you want to, and you can say pass? You know, you've shared it with me, but can you share, I would think, the lowest moment probably in your journey with Gavin?
Oh, yeah. The lowest moment, I think, for me was, you know, Gavin's mom is struggling with addiction, was, you know, removed from the home. And for a while, I was able to maintain like structure and boundaries, but that got more difficult as he had a place to go where he could do whatever he wanted. And I think the hardest thing was when he went from being there and his mom's doing whatever he wanted to also struggling with dealing with seeing her drinking, and he ended up like just leaving and going and living in a youth shelter in downtown Ottawa. And I knew he was struggling because he was reaching out to a counselor, but our relationship at that point was so strained that I knew that like me trying to get involved and trying to go and get him or save him would probably drive him even deeper. So I just had to kind of stand back and let the addiction counselor that had been working with our family try to convince him to get help.
So thank you for.
So I think that was the hardest.
Yeah.
The hardest was just sitting
Go ahead.
back and not being able to do anything. Yeah. The
Yeah.
hardest was sitting and be able and knowing that my intervention would only make things worse. So I had to sit back and let others do the work.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that, because that's painful, and I'm sure that, you know, you can say it, you know, with some clarity, but I can picture that, you know, as a father, having your son in a youth shelter and all the uncertainty that comes with a public youth shelter, and not being able to, you know, talk about feeling so helpless that you can't even kind of go and protect him from that because the relationship is so estranged. And I guess I can just for a minute put myself, you know, ever since you shared that story with me some time ago, to feel the depth of that emotion, like how hard that must have been. And so it's such a beautiful reminder that we can get caught up in other things, but this is what I know about this Thanksgiving for you guys is it's most likely you'll be with your son in Tucson or in Sierra Vista, I don't know, and it'll be you and him, and you'll be sharing stories. There won't be television, there may be some. There won't be his friends, there won't be a cell phone, there won't be pot, there won't be alcohol. I can tell you that there may be some manipulation. I don't care. That comes with the territory. But think about the contrast. That's why I always talk about the challenges and the gifts. Because think about the contrast between having a son that's living in a youth shelter, which typically are not very good places to live, but being so estranged from you that he won't even reach out. Now you're going to be able to spend either that day, that night, and the next day. I don't know. I don't keep track of those details. But you're going to spend some really special time. That memory will be, honestly, a memory you'll never forget in a good way. And so I think it's always helpful to compare and contrast not our vision of what the holidays should be, because we all have those should be's. Again, I know that the challenge for me of growing up in this household that had some issues for sure, that the holidays represented the worst of the worst. And so people around me couldn't understand why I was so different and reactive, and because they had a vision of what, and their families, maybe that vision was true, of what the holidays was, so we can, again, have the vision and the reality. And sometimes, like Sharon and Chuck just did, let's check out the reality. And Eric, as a young adult, and Eric's a great kid. He's a wonderful kid. And as is Gavin, and there may come a time for him as a young adult going forward where he really wants to be in community, where he really wants to celebrate holidays in a way that aren't negative, or, and so that's okay. He'll come to that place. So thank you, Martin, for checking in. And I think as we talk about, again, we can kind of compare and contrast, the challenges of, getting my son to his place and going across the country and doing these other things. We can just sort of take a breath and go, man, I just got to see the blessing, man. This is a blessing of the, may not be what I envisioned it to be. I wanted it to be somewhere else, but man, what a blessing that today we get to spend time together and that he wants to. So thanks, Martin, for checking in. And I wonder if Mario is on the call.
Thanks, Patrick.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Does that make sense, Martin?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it does. No, I agree. It's like, and I do agree with you. The holidays can be the worst of the worst. And, I've kind of let go of what a holiday should be or is, and so I can totally relate to what you're saying. It's about being together. My complication is I've got one son in Thanksgiving in San Diego and the other in Tucson, so I got to figure that out. But I agree with you. It'll all work out.
Sure.
It's just about being together. Maybe this Thanksgiving we're not all together, but Christmas we will be. So all right. Yeah.
And totally, I have families that'll be like, yeah, we're not coming out for Thanksgiving. We may be able to come out the week after Thanksgiving, and we'll do our own celebratory thing, because it's not really about the day for a lot of people.
Right.
It's about that connection and developing that new relationship that is a kind of a new horizon. And, and again, I just got to emphasize for all of you on the call, there may be some sadness, and part of what motivates us to change our behavior and our lifestyle is some of the sadness of the consequences that our lifestyle creates. And so if I'm sitting on Thanksgiving and I'm helping serve, I'm helping support another one of my friends that has his family there, I'm telling you, kids don't really get too tied up into feeling sorry for themselves because they really understand what the reality of their situation is and how they got there. We don't sometimes. We forget that, but they don't. So who else would like to check in? Because my list is clearly a little bit broken, but I will. Who else is on the call? And just announce yourself and say, because I want everybody to check in. I'd like a chance to just answer those two questions.
Patrick, this is Elaine, and I had to jump off the call for a little minute there, so I may have misunderstood, but I think her situation may be similar to, I think it was Gavin's dad that was speaking.
Yes.
So our eldest daughter is living in London, and we have two children. Sean is at the ranch, and our daughter Georgia is in London. And we would never have been spending Thanksgiving with her anyway because she's at college in London, and like that's just not possible. They don't celebrate Thanksgiving, not surprisingly. So she was never going to have holidays then to come home, and so Thanksgiving is easy. And we'll come to the ranch, and we don't yet know if Sean will be allowed off the ranch or where he'll be, but we're looking forward to spending that time with him on the ranch. And last Thanksgiving was a bit miserable, to be honest, for a number of reasons. But prior to that, I'm not suggesting that I think he wasn't high or that I think he was perfectly behaved, but for various reasons, we've all had really good Thanksgivings together, and I love Thanksgiving. It's by far my favourite holiday, and we've managed to make it a good time for everyone. So I'm a little bit nervous about this year. Frankly, I'm nervous about spending like 4 days if he isn't allowed off the ranch, like just with him on the ranch. I'm a little bit nervous about that. It seems a bit intense, but we'll figure it out, and I'm excited to see him. But at Christmas, we've made the decision of not seeing our daughter and instead seeing Sean. And we've discussed it with our daughter. She can't leave. She has a sort of job while she's in college that she really loves, and she has to work over the Christmas period. She really wants to do that, and so we're not going to be able to be with her. I think she's probably going to spend Christmas Day and maybe Christmas Eve and stuff with my family. She'll go up to Scotland, but we won't be with her, and that's going to be really difficult. And that feels like picking one child over another, you know, like we can't possibly physically be with both of them. We spoke about one of us going one place and the other going the other, but when we spoke to our daughter about it, the feeling was that Sean's need was probably greater than her need, and she could go be with our family in Scotland and she'll be happy there and they love her and she'll be fine. But that for me is the challenge. It's how do you give to both your kids when you can't be with both your kids? And I don't mean give as in gifts. That's not what I mean at all. I just mean provide the right emotional and appropriate support to both of them. And one of the things I've certainly felt over the years is that our daughter has really suffered because of the problems that our son has had. And I'm not talking about drug addiction, but, you know, Sean's had, like many of these kids have, right? He's suffered from anxiety and depression and behavioral issues for years. I mean, he didn't just wake up one morning abusing drugs, right? It was a process that got him there. And I feel that for years she's had to take sort of second place to him in terms of he sort of sucked all of the attention out of the air. So I feel badly about that this is happening to her again. But I'm also very grateful that she has people who love her, who she can be with at the holidays, and that we're able to spend time with my son. But I think when you have 2 kids or more than 2 kids, multiple kids, and you're trying to be a good parent to everybody, but you physically can't all be together, that's the challenge that we have these holidays.
Yeah, and And I'll say a few things, and then again, I'll be quiet for a minute because I think there's more people on this call that, in fact, I'd like Lisa to chime in too, back in the day, as they say, you know, how her other son felt. Because I think that, you know, what I appreciate is that you're correct, that I think that your daughter probably has felt like the energy in the family has gone towards Sean. And I think that what starts to happen, and I like, you know, as an idea, kind of how you handle that, and that is, I'm a big advocate on having a family meeting and saying, here's where we're torn. You know, Sean is at the academy, and you know, we as a family, and again, this is different because of Scotland and all that, but let's say there's 3 or 4 kids. I know in one of the families represented on this call, there's 5 kids. And so, you know, how do we want to handle it as a family? And I just think it's so incredible how young people and families might come up with the best solutions. Well, why don't we celebrate Thanksgiving on Saturday? I don't even know what day it's on. And then, you know, you and Dad can go out and celebrate it on Thursday, you know, or with Sean or whatever, or Johnny or whatever, and just kind of let it be a family decision and get the stakeholders involved. Or they may say, you know what? Like, this is really important holiday for us, and I think as a family we should all stay here, and we should visit him another weekend. Let's set a weekend aside 2 weeks from then. He'll be on a different level. He'll be able to go off campus, and then we can celebrate it. So I just want to encourage people to maybe have a family meeting and be willing to be flexible and kind of work it through as a family. If you already know what you're going to do, then I don't know that that's fair to pretend otherwise. But I think to get stakeholders, I've had 10-year-olds that have had solutions that have been something that maybe the adults didn't see. So I understand.
Hey, Patrick.
Yes.
Oh, hi. This is Heather in Minnesota.
Hey, Heather, check in and add to the conversation, please, since I got you.
Yeah, your last comment about, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
So
your
why don't
last
you
comment
introduce
about
yourself and how long you've been in, and then comment on the comment.
Oh, sure. Okay. So my name's Heather Larson. We're from Minnesota. Fredo arrived at Imbalance on the 15th of October. So I think he's probably the newest kid there. And as I'm listening to everything that everybody's saying, I'm sort of feeling like I can relate to everything because we're so new and we haven't formulated whether it's even like an approach or feelings about a lot of the stuff. What I really resonated with was your last comment relating to the family meeting. And this kind of goes to one of the challenges that I haven't heard anybody talk in depth about yet, which is the financial challenge of the holidays. And we, I think I'm realizing that we're not so much like a holiday family, but we just travel a lot. And so travel is kind of the thing that we value maybe like above even holidays to some degree. And we had a little impromptu meeting with I'm the one with 5 kids, by the way. We had a little impromptu meeing the other day with the kids because we're not really thinking about the holidays, but we're thinking about our spring break trip, which was going to be this like super amazing, spectacular thing on an island in Belize in the nicest house that you've ever been on ever. And everybody was super excited to go deep sea fishing and, you know, scuba snorkeling and blah, 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 the whole bit. And we've had to recalibrate that. And it was really interesting to listen to the kids nobody really seemed, too disappointed about it. And I sort of said, well, Clara can't make it to the family weekend. I guess we could go to Arizona for spring break. And they all said, oh yeah, for sure. No, we don't need to go anywhere fancy or beachy for spring break. We're just they all chimed in like, we're going to go visit Fredo. And it was just this really cool, not sure if I'm entirely answering the question, but it was kind of, because we have so many kids, we're always kind of shooting from the hip, reinventing things and starting over to some degree. And so for us, I feel like the challenge is going to be hinging more towards on kind of the financial part of how we're going to keep us all together. Because I was just doing all the math today, like, for all of us to go visit Fredo at Thanksgiving was going to cost like $4,000 or something crazy like that. And so that's the challenge, is we're going to have to kind of reinvent that and reprioritize how we're going to create those traditions, which to my mind and probably to my family's too, don't necessarily have to fall under the holiday umbrella. To some degree, kind of relating to what other people have said, our holidays have been kind of chaotic over the years. Fredo's adopted. He's from Guatemala. He's from like 11 months old, kind of been like the guy that sucked all the energy out of the family. And so, holidays haven't always been, there's definitely been great holidays and we've had awesome things, but I think we're just always reinventing things and going with the flow. And the gift, I really have to say, and this just mostly, Patrick, I know you and I talked last week or the week before when I was out visiting. The gift of this is that we feel like we've closed a page in the book and we're just looking ahead at this like amazing journey for Fredo and for us that is going to just change all of us forever. And so, like, even if it meant, missing every holiday for a year or something, or, something that just seems, horrible. We're just so looking forward to having turned that page and moving forward and with such great guidance and support that we, never really managed to get before. So that's it.
Well, thank you. And thank you for your nice thank you card. That was super sweet. And what I would say is there's a couple things that you brought up, and one of it is I think that, we can recalibrate and we can say, hey, family, and I love what you said, maybe we can't all go out for Thanksgiving and that's okay. And I actually think Fredo's going to be okay with it if that's your decision. And Fredo, what we want to do is what we want to do is we want to kind of, set our intention for spring break, hopefully motivate you to kind of get up in the level system so that you can kind of go off campus with us. It's a beautiful time to be in Arizona. And, and I just, and then there's this other piece that maybe some of you can relate to, and that's the guilt of feeling relieved. So some of you are like, I don't feel guilty. My God, it's been a war zone in my house. So I don't have any guilt.
That's me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's some of you that are like, oh man, I feel guilty because it's probably going to be the best Thanksgiving we've ever had because Fredo's not there. And so then it's like, oh man, now, I kind of own that. And so I really do encourage people to give themselves permission to be accepting of the reality that you have a child that is sick and a child that is compromised, and it's really okay to celebrate the fact that for today on Thanksgiving, whether we're with him or not, he's going to be safe and he's going to be growing. And that is the gift of that holiday. And I'm not going to feel guilty because we're eating homemade pecan pie or whatever that is. I don't know if that's a Thanksgiving thing. I try not to eat sugar, but I, you know, I really do give all of you permission, not that you need me to, but to really go inside and say, this is something that we're giving our son the greatest gift through the greatest sacrifice to everybody. And I'm not going to feel guilty about not having turkey with him on the 25th of November, if that's how it turns out. So I thank you for sharing that. And I think it's pretty amazing that the rest of the kids are like, we don't need, you know, the fancy house, and, you know, we need community and connection. And we'll be with Fredo over spring break, and we'll have probably a ton of fun, and it'll probably, you know, stand out more than maybe other vacations we've had. So thank you for sharing that, and
yeah, sure. Thanks, Patrick.
Part of our community. Anybody else that hasn't had a chance to check in that would like to check in? Lev, I think you're out there still on the phone. Do you want to check in and just kind of add anything more to the discussion that maybe you're feeling? Did we lose you? So Lev may have had to leave, or you may still be muted. Okay, so then I'll just kind of open it up to the group. Anybody else left that wants to check in or have any kind of comments that they've been sitting back on that they'd like to add to the conversation, or speak to Heather, or speak to anybody else?
This is Jesse from New York, New York.
Okay.
And we live a walking distance to Times Square, in case you're interested, how different our lifestyle is. And Max is really turned on to the horses, but he also says he's an urban kid and not. He did research. I mean, he found out about New York City's largest mounted police in the world. And he said you have to be a cop to work there. And he was right. I looked into it. He was right. Now, what I'm looking most is to get to know this kid who's been away for a year and obviously went through some changes, as I did, and the people around him did. And we'd like to have him back for some time to get to know him again.
Sure.
We have to get to know him all over again. And he's taller, that we know, but we don't know how his head has changed. And it obviously has from the meetings we've had and the phone calls we've had. But I'd like to experience, and I'm looking forward to the whole thing. We were always very close, but I don't want to be that close, that kind of close. I want to be his father more than his friend, and I don't know.
Yeah, and I think for those that are going home over the Thanksgiving, and there's a couple on this call that are going home, him being one of them, it really is, I can't tell you enough, it's a time to start new traditions. It's a time because what we encourage, of course, is stay off social media, stay off technology, be in relationship. There is no peers. And again, unless all of your situations were unique, for the kids that we work with, typically, it was part of a school holiday. So the days before and the day after, they were partying. Maybe they got away from that when they went for Thanksgiving dinner, but it was really a temporary state of affairs. So I would know or note that it is a time for many people that suffer from mental health or substance abuse. It is a time over Christmas and Thanksgiving, a time of high potential for relapse if they're not in programs. For our kids, I can't tell you that to my knowledge, and we have pretty good knowledge because we do drug testing when they get back, and sometimes we have parents do it while they're at home. I can't tell you an instance that we've had a kid relapse over the holiday visit. So there's something that we're doing right. I'd like to believe there's something, we're calibrating who's ready to go home. And so we kind of try and take that process very seriously. And we're, setting parents up for what to look for and trying to encourage, in fact, I hate to put it so strongly, but mandate AA attendance. Most AA communities or NA communities have 24-hour meetings on Thanksgiving and on Christmas where they have food and they have service opportunities. So please, 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 if your son is going home over the holidays, either Christmas or Thanksgiving, please keep the AA attendance going. In Tucson, there's different home groups that sponsor, they bring in food for the entire 24 hours. They have turkey, they have meals, they have meetings. And really, honestly, for many of my friends that are in 12-step recovery and celebrate, they love the holiday because for this reason, actually, is because they get to be of service to somebody else. That's what they look forward to. This one guy that, back when I had hair that cut my hair, he was like, this is my favorite holiday because I supply 4 turkeys for my home group. And then we have these young newcomers come in and they're like, this is the best turkey we've ever had. So he's not looking at the holiday as a time of getting, he's looking at the holiday as a time of giving. And that is something that we're trying, for those kids on campus, we're really trying to re-sculpt that kind of narrative that this is a time for you to give to your family that's on campus. And I want to share this story just briefly because, kids, for those that are going to be on campus, it's not that a kid's manipulation or addictive self dies overnight. It takes months, if not years. And just for you to know, we had one kid, his parents showed up on campus and they're like, and the kid said, yeah, all the parents got to leave at 3. They should have checked with us. And they're like, oh, so there's no meals or anything. Anyway, they called me up on Thanksgiving night and said, I just want you to know that because of you and in balance, our Thanksgiving dinner was popcorn. And so I went, what do you mean? Why didn't you stay? We had like 14 turkeys and we had people cooking for 2 days. And they're just like immediately like, you're kidding, because our son said we had to leave by 3 and that you guys weren't hosting a dinner. And I'm like, come on, you know us. Do you think we would do that on Thanksgiving? We're in Sierra Vista. You're not going to find any place to, we wouldn't do that to you. And so we were able to kind of eventually have a laugh about it. But I can tell you that it was kind of his way. And I share that just to know that, there's some slipping and sliding that may occur. It was his way of diminishing their faith in the process and of just kind of doing a zinger. And it kind of, worked, it's splitting one, the program against the other. And I said, so you didn't check out with staff? Because we asked you to do that, to sign out. And they're like, no, we didn't. And we're like, because if you would have done that, they would have said, why aren't you coming in for dinner? And so ultimately, they were able to kind of come back to, yeah, really it's our responsibility. We were manipulated by our son, but we allowed ourselves to be manipulated. So anyway, the other thing I would say is, the last thing I would say, and then open it up to anybody else, and then we'll close, is, I don't know if you're aware of this, but, we have a transitional living program. We prepare 2 weeks in advance, 3 weeks in advance, because Halloween is a really big party holiday. It didn't seem to be that way when I was a kid. It was like Halloween, but it's taken on this new kind of, over the last 10 years, where young adults and teenagers just party. I mean, it's probably more so than, I mean, on par with New Year's Eve. It's really considered a holiday to get wasted, to get high, to go out, to be with your friends. And so it's pretty cool that your kids are going to be in a program over holiday of Halloween. There's a lot of bad things that happen to our kids over Halloween in those party scenes. And so just to know that, you know, we take precautions at TL because obviously we want to celebrate with the kids and do Halloween, but we don't want them to be in harm's way. And that's the same with New Year's Eve. But so when we start the holiday season from the chemical dependency mental health continuum, we really start with Halloween and go all the way through to New Year's Eve because we know those are the high risk periods. Please know that I'm available over all of the holidays. I do that on purpose because I know that's in my entire professional life. That's where people have sometimes the most need, and I don't mind that. So just know if you have anything come up, please give me a call. I really have done that for 35 years, and it's important to me. And so last Christmas Eve at about 9 o'clock, I was on the phone with an 18-year-old that was in a hotel room that was getting ready to run away, or walk away, I should say, from the program, and it was a crisis, and I was able to, you know, kind of bring that to a pretty cool resolution. But anyway, any other people that didn't get a chance to check in that would like to check in before we close this parent support group off?
Hi, Patrick. It's Tammy and Steve.
Oh, good. How are you? Go ahead, Tammy.
We're great. Thank you for the call. We just found out Zach got level 3. Yay.
Yeah, I had a little bird tell me that, but go ahead.
Anyway, so we're thankful for a lot of things, but he left home. He left for Wilderness October 3rd of last year and got to you guys December 19th. So we didn't have him for Thanksgiving or Christmas last year. So if we get him this year at home, that's even better. Steve and I could care less where we celebrate it, if it's there with him or here with us. But I do think it means a lot for my parents and our extended family to see him because it's been, you know, a long time. So we're hoping he comes home. That'll be his first home visit. And of course, with it being a holiday, I'm sure that's more stressful, but we're just thankful to be at this stage and feel really good about where he is. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Steve, how about you? Challenges and gifts of this holiday season? I mean, the gift is that last, you know, holiday season you weren't able to be together. This one you do get to be together. Anything you want to add to that?
I'm excited about him being home. You know, there is the concerns of you know, something happening when he's here. You know, especially holidays. I know holidays are celebratory times, but we possibly have a relative that's coming to the event that may, you know, that does drink and does smoke cigarettes. So, you know, it's you know, how do you deal with that situation? You try to tell them not to do it beforehand, but, you know, you don't know if they just don't think about, you know, we haven't been in that situation yet, so we're not sure how that will transpire, you know, and so that's a thing that's in the back of my head as far as about, you know,
you bring up a really important issue. I don't know if the day-to-day operation stuff I don't know as much about, to be honest with you, in terms of how long a kid's on a level before he goes on his first home visit. So that's between you and your therapist. But I think whether it's Christmas or Thanksgiving, you bring up a really important point, and I thank you for bringing it up, and I want to speak to it. There's another question that was asked about what we do on Halloween, and the answer is I'm not sure. I know that our staff, because of the very nature of their commitment to the kids, always try and make the holidays special. So I don't know what we do, but I suspect it's going to be something fun and goofy. We carved pumpkins last year, and They painted horses, which was kind of fun. They painted horses into Halloween characters. It's not inhumane. The horses like it. They like the attention. Some of that's posted on our website. We have, in the past, pumpkin carving contest, and we do goofy stuff. I mean, I think the kids think we're goofy, but I think they also have a ton of fun doing it. But Steve, you bring up a super important point for Christmas, Hanukkah, holiday, period, is it is traditional in a lot of families to celebrate with wine or beer or whatever. You know, I don't judge that. I mean, who am I to, whatever, right? I think that there's nothing wrong with any of that for people that aren't compromised, for sure. But there's two things that go on, and I do want to close with this. This is an important point because I don't think I'll get a chance to talk to you again before Christmas, is that there's two things that happen at the same time. There's your son who's going to look you in the eye a lot of times and say, no, people can drink. I don't care. They can smoke pot. They can drink. Whatever they do, because I don't want to feel responsible for diminishing their experience. I shared a little bit about my mom, or maybe I didn't, but you know, growing up in an alcoholic home, my mom was never able to draw the boundary. And my dad didn't drink that much, but he was that man of the house and said, at holidays, we're going to have alcohol. And you know, I wish my mom would have stood up to that, because she could never not have get drunk on the holidays. But anyway, so my point is that there's two things that are going on. My mom would say, no, I don't want to take away from anybody's time because I'm an alcoholic. Well, that's too bad, because it never worked out that way. I wish she would have said, you know, I don't want any alcohol in the house on these holidays because it's going to be hard for me to stay sober. She couldn't find her voice, but we've had many kids that have found their voice. And Steve, you ought to talk to your son, talk to Zach and say, what do you want? My guess is he's going to say, let Uncle Joe smoke and drink because, you know, that's what he does and it's not going to bother me at all and I'm not going to be triggered by it. Okay. You know, assess that. I have had kids that have called their parents up and say, I don't want any alcohol. I've had families decide not to go to the family gathering and just stay at home. I've had families ask their extended family members and be quite surprised by their response, not in a positive way, to say, hey, we're going to have Christmas at our house. We're asking that it be non-alcoholic, and have family members, you know, email or call and say, then we're not coming. Okay. All right. That's shit. Okay. You're not coming. So I don't think there's a right way or wrong way, but I do think there's a way to encourage dialogue about it. And, you know, my hope is that if Zach's home at Christmas or if he's home at Thanksgiving, again, I don't know what the parameters of that are, and there's going to be alcohol there, that he can have an honest dialogue with you about how hard that's going to be. And if he says, hey, Pops, hey, Mom, you know, could we have it be alcohol or drug free? Now with the kind of legalization or the medical marijuana, you know, that's going to be, you know, an issue for our kids. There's going to be aunts and uncles and people, you know, ingesting or smoking marijuana. And so it really begs dialogue. And there's some kids that I actually believe I'm not going to be triggered by it. I know I'm in treatment. I don't want to do anything to set my treatment back. But I guess I'm repeating myself. It really is healthy dialogue to say, son, how would you like it? How would it best support your process right now? And if there's family members that say, hey, Steve, I'm not coming over because you guys don't have the traditional punch with the vodka in it. Yeah, I just made that up. But, you know, oh, well, I don't know that I want those people in my life, to be honest with you. But that's up to you. So there's no right or wrong. It's just about dialogue.
Right. And I agree with you completely. You know, I guess the fear is that, you know, if you talk to Zach about it and he says, oh, it's no big deal, you know, it won't be a big deal. And then then it is a trigger, I guess, you feel guilty. I mean, he's got to have a triggers. He's got to face those in his life anyway. We can't stop him from having them. But, you want to wrap him in bubble wrap and make sure everything goes perfect, but I know that's not true too.
If I could be honest with you, and of course I feel I can, with all of you, his first sober holiday in your house, I think it would be, I would highly recommend it being drug and alcohol free. It doesn't mean that I'll judge you if you do it differently. Doesn't mean I come from a moral standpoint of right or wrong. It just means that I've been doing this a long time, and I know that the addict is probably going to be less insightful about what they need because they're worried about imposing on the rest of the family. And so I guess that's what I would say. You as a family have a lot of invested in this time with your son, and to let people join you in that celebration and in supporting him in that way. If I could say, if I could wave a magic wand for all your kids, their first sober holiday would be, around people that are not using. So,
yeah.
Later on, they have to get used to it. You're right. The real world is people drink and they smoke pot and they do opium and they do opiates and they do all sorts of stuff. And your kids will get used to those triggers and be able to have the resiliency not to be triggered by people around them using. But for their first holiday, I do think it's going to be a little bit of a challenge.
I agree. Yeah. Thank you.
So thank you all. There's a dog barking. Happy holiday. For those that didn't get a check-in, I hope this was helpful anyway. We do got to close. I appreciate all of you for showing up. I know sometimes this isn't, ideal. To be honest with you, if you all lived in Tucson, I'd much rather have you around me in a circle to be able to have that kind of contact, whether you were in yoga pants or not. But in lieu of that, I hope some of the things we shared were helpful. I hope those that shared, and those that didn't got something out of it. And I wish you all a happy and safe holiday season. And as I've said, we intentionally kind of stick around and are on our cell phones to be available for folks. And then usually, historically after the holidays, we'll maybe take a week off. So please feel free to give me a call again if anything comes up. Anybody have any closing thoughts or things before we sign off?
Nothing here, Patrick. This is Heather signing off. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the next one.
Okay. All right, folks. Thank you all, and good night. And I will, I'm sure, see you at some point in the near future.
Thanks, Patrick.
Bye-bye. You're welcome.
Thanks, Patrick.
My pleasure.
Bye.
Happy holidays.